Hello, everyone. Welcome to Peace Over Pieces, a podcast that interviews various survivors of abuse to help spread awareness. I'd like to welcome on the show our next podcast guests, Lucy Cantley and Camille Ray, otherwise known as Calamity Jane Official on social media. This music duo based out of Nashville is led by a violinist, Lucy, and complemented by the sultry vocals of Camille Ray. Together, they redefine genre with the fresh take on alternative country. Thanks for coming on the show, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, let us start with learning a little about you guys. We're just going to strip it down to where you're from and what you are doing now for a living.
Sure. My name's Camille, and I'm originally from Kentucky. I have been in Nashville for about a decade almost. So, yeah, I've just been doing the music thing for the past, I guess it's been 7 years, and doing some teaching, just anything to do with music I've been doing for the past little bit here in Nashville. And Lucy and I met each other about a year ago and decided to start Calamity Jane, and it's history from there.
And before jumping into your story, I'd like to mention, so with these two, I actually came across you guys. I was laying in bed on TikTok, of course, and they recently just went viral on TikTok and Instagram. I actually saw them on TikTok only, and then I reached out to them I believe it was like the next minute. I was like, I have to DM them and try to get them on my podcast. And then after that, they went viral on Instagram. So if you just want to give a brief overview of what that TikTok was, and we can just dive into your story.
Well, yeah, just some background, because this is like a pretty heavy topic for Camille. So sometimes I feel like it's easier when I give kind of the introduction and then she can get into the details. But
of course.
We, of course, are a duo. We're artists. We're singer-songwriters, musicians. But something that we also said in our video, one of our posts, which I think is important to establish, is we're also humans, of course, and we have lives just like everyone else, and we go through trauma and drama and broken relationships and all the things that we experience as humans. So Camille and I talked about, as part of our brand, being an artist is not just being an artist anymore. It's not just being a musician. You're essentially becoming kind of a public figure. If your career goes the way you want it to go, you're doing so many different things other than music. And so we talked about early on when we formed Calamity Jane, what do we want our other platforms to be? What are the things, the issues we want to get behind, organizations that we might want to partner with, and just issues that we want to talk about and support as part of our brand. And it was a pretty easy discussion to pinpoint, actually, because Camille obviously has this really intense backstory of actually being in an abusive relationship that was not romantic. So it's something very different than the type of abuse that a lot of people talk about, which is usually within romantic relationships, and especially between a man and a woman, which this was not a man either. So
yes,
we had just talked about, this is part of our platform. It's time to just talk about it. It's been a really long time for her since she's been able to open up about it, I think. And so that's what spurred us to start that conversation on social media. And we truly did not expect it to go viral.
Right.
In many ways, I think it is going to end up being a positive thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the biggest reason why I reached out to you guys. It was very eye-opening to me because on this podcast, we normally have women and men in significant other, relationship abuse. So I was really wanting to talk to you guys just because abuse truly comes in all forms. And I'm sure the people listening, they're just like wondering what's going on. But yeah, we can just start with, this is about your roommate, correct? Your previous roommate?
Yeah.
How old were you and how did you become her roommate? Did you guys have a previous friendship before this? How did it all start?
Well, I was in my late 20s when I moved to Nashville, but I had just gone through a divorce. So I knew no one. I moved here with hardly any money in my bank account. I just had nothing. It was just kind of, I moved. I decided to take the leap after all those years. And when I got here, I didn't have many friends. It's tough being in Nashville and trying to make your way. And so I became friends with her prior to moving in. And she was an amazing friend, probably the best friend I'd ever had. And she was dependable. I leaned on her. I just opened myself up to this friendship. And honestly, my whole life, I never really had super close friendships because of doing music and always kind of being really extra weirdly busy as a child. I just didn't make close connections, and I'm kind of an introvert at heart,
Mm-hmm.
and hard for me to trust people. But because of the vulnerability that I was dealing with my divorce, I just opened myself up extra to this person that I normally wouldn't have. And our friendship went really great until we moved in together. And then that's when things kind of started becoming overbearing and toxic. And it was hard to have discretion because I was so emotionally tied up with everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
So
does.
it was just it just kind of happened and snowballed really quickly.
So you moved in, and this is when, things started changing between your friendship. What were those red flags that began to develop?
We actually are going to post something, kind of follow up about this on TikTok very soon, so anyone can watch if if they want to kind of get a visual. But basically, let me see. I get really scattered when I talk about this.
No,
So
it's okay. Take your time.
What was the question?
Professional life
Oh yeah,
intertwined.
yeah. We ended up working together, and she got into a position where our social lives were intertwined, of course, because she was one of my only friends in Nashville,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a lot of friends of her own. So I became friends with those people, very close friendships with people that she knew. So every one of my friendships were mutual with hers, pretty much. And then we started working together, and she had access to all of my professional contacts, and she kind of became in charge of my career development. And so she could hold over my head my career. So if I didn't do what she wanted me to do, she would threaten to, call this person that we just started a radio campaign with, or something professional that she could just end. And she
Oh,
really
wow.
could have done that. So that was in my career. I mean, that's what I've been focusing on since I was 3 years old. So it was really important to me to build a career and to maintain professionalism within that. So that was a big threat to me. And then another red flag was that once again, most of my friendships at the time, or the friendships that I could actually tangibly connect with at the time, were through her. And she began to isolate me slowly from everyone I knew, starting with the guy that I was dating at the time. And I would usually spend, every other weekend with him. The first weekend that I went to spend with him after we moved in, she just became really, really just possessive of me, and just calling me names, telling me that I was a bad friend, that I was a whore for going to visit my boyfriend and not staying with her when she needed me. And I was really just kind of confused as to what she was even talking about.
Yeah.
And so that started, and then it was really strange, and I thought maybe I should move out then, but of course she was my friend and I cared about her, so she explained herself out of that situation, and I continued to live with her. A red flag, just really intertwining myself completely, professionally, personally, with someone, or just one person is always a mistake, no matter what. And then just allowing that isolation to start happening and not really doing anything about it or standing up for myself.
Right.
Those were the red flags that kind of popped up.
Just cutting in.
No, yeah.
Saying, one of the other things that we put in the video that we're going to post today is that, just be aware, like a red flag is levels of jealousy. If there's someone in your life who gets really, really jealous or angry or possessive when you hang out with other people,
Yeah.
Just keep an eye on that and make sure that doesn't get out of control, or pay attention to the fact that you have other people in your life you can lean on other than that one person.
Of course, yes, I agree. And just as any abusive relationships, they normally start out, as a great friendship or relationship, and you never see it coming, and then you don't realize when you're in this bubble with it. So it's hard to detach yourself from that situation. So I'm just extremely intrigued by, what flipped in her. Do you guys know if she has any history of mental illness? Was she, was it a romantic thing that made her possessive? What do you think, or what is your theory about it?
I was never aware. Like when we first moved in, first became friends, I had I didn't know anything about her, any kind of mental illness in her past. Of course, that's something that she didn't talk about. I don't know what all I want to say, honestly, about everything. I feel like there might have been a little bit of romantic feelings on her side of things. And that was the main reason why she was so possessive. But it was never told me that. She never made that known to me until I kind of found that out after everything was over. So, yeah. I just think there was that undertone for sure.
Something else I could just say from obviously being friends with Camille and having heard about the situation, we also wanted to make really clear in this campaign that, of course, abuse awareness, mental health awareness are both very important and sort of intertwined subjects a lot. But we, to her knowledge, it was never made clear or established that there was any history of mental illness, that there was any formal diagnosis. So that's something I feel like we can't even speak to. Like, you just didn't know.
Yeah.
So maybe yes, maybe no. Either way, what we thought was important was just spreading the awareness of how common this is in relationships that aren't romantic.
Of course.
And telling the story in a way where, it's jarring, it's kind of traumatizing, but there's so many people in similar situations that reached out to us and were like, oh my gosh, I thought it was just me. And for Camille, I think it was just wanting people to see this is what happened. If this is happening to you, you're not crazy.
Yes.
Be aware that it's unhealthy.
And, I mentioned just intertwining my life so much that when we would have, like, most of the time when this kind of thing would happen, I could not get the door locked, so she was in the room with me. If you could just put that into perspective. So very unhealthy, very dangerous. And when I would reach out to friends and try to tell them, not really even tell them the depth of what was happening, but that I felt like I needed help and I needed someone to talk to, they would then go to her and tell her what I said, because it was all a mutual friendship. They thought that I was training her. And so this is just to show that there are other sources of help out there. We put some things on our Instagram or on our bios, TikTok, Instagram, talking about hotlines you can reach out to, because it is a very isolating thing, and people don't believe you. People do not believe when you tell them that your roommate's abusing you. They just kind of look at you funny, or they think that you're making it up or you're exaggerating. And it builds, in my case, it just built drama for someone to go gossip about what I said, and it was just a nightmare. I didn't know how to get out of it. I felt very, very trapped in my situation. Even though I wasn't trapped, I felt trapped. And I feel like the people that are reaching out to us are in that same mindset, because it's not a man beating them, or an authority, any kind of authority figure beating them or abusing them, or it's their roommate that they have a choice to be friends with, yet you're still trapped in this thing you can't get out of.
Yeah, that's super powerful.
But it's just a very complicated mix of emotions when you're in a situation like this.
Truly appreciate you coming on here and spreading this awareness, because the whole point of this nonprofit is just to kill the stigmas and not make, the survivors feel like they're crazy and they're not alone. And I'm sure there are millions of cases similar to this, but this is something special and unique that isn't spoke about very often. So I guess the next question would be, what was the tipping point for you? How did you get away from this situation and in this relationship with your roommate?
Well, people, and I ask myself, I have a lot of self-guilt and why I stuck around so long. And it was because of the career aspect of it. The friendship was going down the drain, and I kind of realized that maybe we never had a friendship to begin with. Maybe it was probably always toxic and unhealthy. So that's kind of a hit in the face that, you spent so much time trying to help someone in the only way you know how, and then you realize that, they just abused you for years. Career kept me there because I felt like that's the only thing I had left. And I've been literally singing, working toward this music career since I was a 3-year-old child. So I stuck with it, trying to civilly separate myself from this. And I had to wait until there was a period of time because no one saw this. It was completely behind closed doors.
Right.
I didn't say anything because I didn't want to hurt anyone professionally. I didn't want to hurt myself professionally. So I just thought I could deal with it and get out of it on my own. But eventually it came out into the open on her part, and people kind of saw her true colors, I guess you could say. And so I had a close group of friends and kind of business partners at the time, that kind of saw through it, and they're like, we're so sorry that we didn't believe you. We're sorry that we didn't see this, which it wasn't their fault. It's never anyone's fault particularly, but I finally had a support system I felt like I could lean on. And I also honestly came to a point where I knew that if I didn't get out, I was going to be harmed. Possibly either because I was dealing with mental illness at this time. I was depressed. I was completely isolated from my family. I didn't think anyone cared about me. And so I was like, I'm going to die one way or the other if I don't get out of this. And I had to say, if it does end my career, then it ends it. And I basically fled the situation. I had my suitcase and enough money and my wallet in my car, and I just left everything and I fled the situation. And the breaking point was just knowing that I wasn't going to make it out of this if I stayed any longer.
Yeah.
And I wish that I'd left sooner, but in retrospect, you can only say you shoulda, coulda, woulda done something. And I don't know. It was a very dramatic situation, but it was real. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I just knew I could get out. Otherwise, I was not going to make it out of there.
It's hard to hear, survivors tell their story because from my perspective, you're in fault of nothing and you should not feel guilty. But the natural feeling that survivors get is just guilt. And like, why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I do this? But what sucks about it is the person abusing you, they don't have, that mind of sympathy. They're not thinking like you're thinking. And it's hard because survivors, the trauma they get from it, the guilt and the thoughts that stay with them, that can be worse than how you felt when you were in the abuse. And that sticks with you for a long time. And you're super strong, you're super brave and inspiring, and especially sharing your story, it's going to help people realize like, wow, I'm not crazy, and it's okay that I went through that. That doesn't make me less of a person, it makes me stronger. So overall, would you say you deal with trauma or anxiety from experiencing this pretty regularly? And what advice would you give to those who went through a similar situation, and how can you, cope with that anxiety?
Well, I've put this behind me. Up until the past week, it was just and it was bright in my face again. But I put it behind me, but it took a good year because I went through legal stuff with this person as well, to legally separate things because of course we had some professional ties, but it took about a year for me to feel safe. And to build a community around me that were real friends, that were real support system. And I remember there was probably, I don't know, it was close to a year after I had completely left the situation, and I looked around, myself and my friends and my family, and I realized that everyone in my life loved and accepted me for me. And they didn't want anything in return. They didn't have any expectations of who I should be. I wasn't disappointing anyone by just being alive. And I realized that I had a real support system and a real tribe of people around me that I could lean on. And I knew that I wasn't really expecting like this person to show up at my door and, knock it down. Sometimes I feared that, but I knew that probably realistically wouldn't happen. But I knew that I wasn't alone. And I'd shared my story with people, and people knew my situation, and there was no judgment there. So I had to see that like you said, I wasn't crazy. I had to see that this wasn't an embarrassing thing that I just got myself into and couldn't get out of, and that people really did love and care for me. But with as far as PTSD, I know this, like when I watch, this is kind of a silly thing, but when I watch like Lifetime movies, because I love Lifetime movies, of someone being held captive or someone being abused, I feel that. And even if it's a silly, dramatized movie, I feel it. And I know how that person feels. So when I watch or listen to any kind of podcast or anything that where someone's been in a similar situation or any kind of abusive situation, I go back to that feeling, which is the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. It's the worst emotion I've ever had in my life, to feel trapped like that. So I do still experience it here and there. And I'm not scared anymore. I'm not scared at all. I used to be. But I do still deal with just the fact that it happened at all, thinking about it, still feeling a little guilty of my, because I had actions in there that I'm not proud of. I acted in ways that I shouldn't have acted because I was, in this situation trying to get out of it. I wish I'd handled things differently. So just little things like that.
Right.
But for someone going through this or just getting out of a situation, and I talked to an individual that messaged us and was asking the same question, my biggest advice would be to just surround yourself with people that love you. And then you're going to see your self-worth. You're going to see that you have someone to lean on, and you don't have to be scared of someone like this that has absolutely no credibility, that has no hold on you at all. They were just an adult bully that made your life miserable, that you were trying to be there for, and you don't have to be scared of that.
I love it. Thank you so much. Again, just your story, it's going to open up a whole realm we haven't touched on the podcast, so I'm very grateful for that. Honestly, we covered pretty much all my questions. If we can just close with maybe something you would tell yourself when you were in that situation, coming from the person you are now, do you have anything you would specifically tell her?
Well, if I were I know for a fact that I wouldn't be in that situation now because I've grown a lot. But what I would tell myself is that pretty much all that you're hearing, all the negativity that's coming at you from this person is a lie. It is a lie. Nothing bad the things that you think are going to happen to you if you try to leave, they're probably 99.9% not going to happen. Just trust your gut and take care of yourself, because that's the most important thing. And I wish that I had listened to myself and not been so scared to make a move, because I could have done it sooner and I would have been a much happier person much sooner.
Absolutely.
And Claire, if I could add on to your question about PTSD, because obviously this is my very best friend, and
Yes.
I was not in this situation myself, and Camille and I didn't even know each other when this was happening, but I can say, just as an outsider, but someone who deeply cares for her well-being, I could see just visibly how painful this still is now. And that's 4 years later. And that's still something that she's carrying. And even this week, with all this, viral success, it's such a weird word to use because it's such a heavy topic that we weren't expecting to get all of this traction all of a sudden on it. I mean, again, in a way, it is a good thing.
It's our goal to bring things like this to light. However, it was just such a quick turnaround.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
It was just an overnight all of a sudden, and I could see when I told Camille, I was like, dude, this video is going viral right now. And she was like, I feel sick to my stomach.
Yeah, I was actually at a meeting, at a meeting. I work for some venues here, and I was in a meeting and I automatically started to feel.
Oh, of course.
Not even knowing why. And the rest of the day I was just sick to my stomach. I got a migraine headache. It's all this pent up stress and PTSD that you don't even know is there.
Oh, I can't imagine. Yeah.
Resurfaced.
Yeah.
And then I secondhand feel like I started feeling that too. And we basically both weird week of having really mixed emotions about this whole thing, because it's a subject that is not addressed. We've had hundreds and hundreds of comments from people being like, oh my gosh, this happened to me. Same thing with a roommate, same thing with a girlfriend. So that's great to see. But yeah, it was just overwhelming. And I think in a way, probably this will be with you your whole life.
Oh, yeah. And and another thing, if you have time, just like thinking back on it, this situation brought out a side of me when I would, when I would feel trapped or feel scared or get angry and defend myself if I had to. I had never, ever even raised my voice at another human before this. I had any physical altercation with anyone in my whole entire life. Never. I'd always been the mediator. I'd always handled everyone else's problems. I was always, calm and collected. And this person would not respond to any kind of reason. And so I was in this horrible entrapment for 4 years, thinking that I had become this horrible person, that I had become this different human being because I was reacting to what was being thrown at me. And then when I got out of the situation, I was right back to being the same girl I'd always been. And I have not had I haven't yelled at anyone, and I have not raised my voice in an argument since 4 or 5 years since this was over. I definitely have not had any kind of physical altercations whatsoever. So it's like I realized that even though I was in the situation and I was contributing to the toxicity in my own way, I'm not that person.
Right.
I know who I am. And seeing that now in retrospect, it's mind-blowing almost.
I love that so much. I got chills and I'm a little mind blown because I love the comparison you made to who you are. I mean, what you were going through compared to the person you actually, you are. And I don't know, I was raised personally with severe abuse from my dad and him towards my mom. And he made her feel very low. And I remember, finally when we were out of this abusive situation, the first thing my mom said was wow, I don't feel ugly anymore. I don't feel like I'm crazy. I don't feel all these things that he told me I was every single day of my life. And she went straight back to just this bubbly life of the party, just a happy woman. And it's just crazy how manipulation really can take over your mental health, your mentality on who you are. And I think people who haven't been abused, they can't wrap their mind around how abuse is trapping and words are trapping. Emotional trauma can be suffocating. So yeah, I love that you made that contrast, and yeah, it's just amazing.
I'm very sorry that you went through that. I'm glad that you're out and healthy now.
Oh, thank you, and same to you. But yeah, you two definitely are helping reveal a whole other world of abuse awareness today, and I'm just so grateful that you took the time to tell your story, and you're using your platform in such a positive way. You guys easily could have deleted that TikTok and just oh no, this is not happening, and you're not ready to share your story, and I know it's hard. But again, just thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing this. I can't wait to see messages and share it with you guys who reaches out. And yeah, I just hope moving forward, you guys, the best of luck. And you guys, again, are just using your platform in such a great way. So thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate you reaching out. This has been really nice and healing.
Yeah.
I was nervous about this, I'm not going to lie, but it's a good thing. It's a very positive way to get things out, so thanks for giving me that outlet today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's therapy for me personally. When I keep talking about it, it becomes just more, at peace. So I hope that has the same effect on you. But closing this out, could you please let everyone know where they can reach you if they're listening to this, your social media handles, anything like that?
Yeah, well, we're Calamity Jane. We're a duo based out of Nashville, and all of our socials are Calamity Jane Official. Website, TikTok, Instagram. A lot of people have messaged us on Instagram, so Calamity Jane Official. Feel free to send us a note or a comment, and love to hear from you for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Hope you have a great one.
You too.
Thanks, Clara. You too.
Thank you.